What is HbA1c? HbA1c is a blood test, and it's a term that's commonly used in people that have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes or even type 1 diabetes. But what is it? When you have a blood test called HbA1c, what is actually being measured? Well, HbA1c refers to hemoglobin with glucose stuck to it. Now, I'm going to unpack that in a minute, but actually the HbA1c blood test is hemoglobin with glucose stuck to it. And the more glucose that's stuck to the hemoglobin, the higher the HbA1c blood test. So what is hemoglobin and why do you get glucose stuck to it? So hemoglobin is in our red blood cells. It is the part of the red blood cell that carries oxygen. So red blood cells are the cells floating around in our blood, and they have hemoglobin inside them, and that hemoglobin enables the red blood cells to carry oxygen around the body and deliver that oxygen to the body. Now, we also have glucose in our blood, and glucose will stick to everything. And the higher the glucose level, the more glucose will stick to stuff, whether it's the walls of our arteries or whether it's various other proteins in the blood. But glucose will also stick to hemoglobin. So if you've got hemoglobin floating around in the blood, which we do to carry oxygen, and you've got glucose floating around in your blood, which we do to keep us alive, you'll find that that glucose, some of it will stick to the hemoglobin. Now, if you have more glucose in your blood, you're going to get more glucose sticking to hemoglobin. And therefore, it can be a useful measure to indicate how much glucose is in our blood over a period of time. The reason we look at hemoglobin and red blood cells is because we can get hold of them. If we're trying to monitor pre-diabetes or diagnose it or type 2 diabetes, it's important we can get something. We can get access to something to test it, and hemoglobin is just very accessible. All we need is a needle in our arm to suck some blood out and look to see how much glucose is stuck to the hemoglobin. The life cycle, so red blood cells last in our blood about 3 months' time, about 3 months. So if we are doing this HbA1c blood test, it's going to give us an average of our blood sugar over a 3-month period. So it's going to show us how much glucose has been in our blood on average over a 3-month period. And that's why with the HbA1c blood test, you typically get it done no more frequently than every 3 months. It's usually used every 6 to 12 months, but actually 3 monthly can be pretty insightful. So let's summarize some of that, because some of that went quite technical. HbA1c is a blood test that's used to diagnose and monitor pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. HbA1c is hemoglobin, which is the oxygen carrying part of our red blood cells with glucose stuck to it. The red blood cell and the hemoglobin has a 3-month life, so it gets created and then it disappears and gets broken down after 3 months. So a HbA1c blood test will give us an indicator of how much glucose stuck to the hemoglobin over a 3-month period, and therefore what our average blood sugar has been over a 3-month period.